Hi, this is kind of a bad news, good news kind of intro. The bad news is that Candace Thomas Maddox, who was supposed to be here and be your presenter today, isn't able to be here, and so you're stuck with me instead. The good news is I get to do my presentation before Candace sets the bar too high for me to ever reach. So I want to thank Mark and Paul for inviting me to volunteer for this presentation. What I'm going to talk about is some advanced techniques in PowerPoint. A lot of us use PowerPoint for um, presenting visual augmentation to our lectures, but a lot of the bad rap that PowerPoint gets is the way the defaults work. If you use any of their templates or their themes, it generally produces a fairly boring set of slides. Or, I mean, they're okay. They do what they have to do. They visually augment your presentation. What I'm focusing on today, though, really is using PowerPoint to actually generate some content. You don't have to go out and buy video software or interactive gaming software or programming software. PowerPoint has a lot of capabilities that will allow you to make your own games, your own animations, and things that might augment learning. I use these in my face-to-face classes, but I find they're particularly effective for my online classes and for flipped parts of my regular classes because it allows the student to control the pacing, the learning. It allows them to repeat more easily than some tools would allow them to do. They can go back, they can review, they choose when to click. In fact, when they choose to click actually gets them more actively involved than in just watching the video. So I find them very effective. I don't know, I'm going to show you some examples of slides that I've used, and then you can see if you think they're adaptable to your work. First, I'm going to go through this presentation and just show you all the examples as if you were students in my class. After that, we'll go ahead and I have another set that you can download from Box, and that contains instructions for how to do each of the things I show you today. And that part will be the hands-on part. So here we go. I'm going to do this in presentation mode. That's one of the things you kind of have to get your students comfortable with, is in order for the links and the animations to work, you have to view them in presentation mode or slideshow mode. It doesn't work if you're just in edit mode. In fact, I start all of mine with this first slide. This slide is telling them that they're going to be using slides that have animations and that they need to use it in slideshow mode. If there's a video icon, they should click on it. I also include these click tips on my pages, and I use those consistently throughout. One of the reasons I use them, I want the student to have to proactively click on something to display some more information. It also helps to reduce clutter on the screen when they first come to the slide. But if they click it, it confirms that they're in slideshow mode. They saw the little butterfly and they got this extra information. Now, I was hoping to be able to go through some of the copyright and how we're supposed to, well, first of all, how we can find copyright permissions, or let's see, better way to say it, images that are available to you through either shared copyright, a copyleft technique, or the public domain, but I don't think we're going to have time. In any event, anyone who's interested in that can talk to me, and I'll let you, and we can talk about that. We also always credit every image that you use even if it is something like an icon or that butterfly that this person Didier Dequaz, hope there's no French teachers here, who provided the butterfly under the Creative Commons license 4.0. So I just credited him. Not discredited him, just credited him. So here's, go on to the next page. One of the techniques I like to use is to delay the reveal of something. So in this case, this is a picture of the Appalachian households or the Appalachian counties of Ohio. You can see them there in green. And I make an assertion statement. This comes from Michael Alley's assertion evidence model. He uses them primarily on scientific slides. I find them very effective in almost every slide. He starts with a complete sentence that's making an assertion, and then the rest of the slide is just to provide visual evidence for that assertion. So here we say Appalachian households have less access to broadband than does the rest of Ohio. I've shaded in the counties of Ohio. Again, down here, this image is in the public domain and was released by the author, I. Bagley. And it'll click, when the student clicks, they then see this image, which is the counties in Ohio, this area census tracts in Ohio that do not have access to broadband. Now, ordinarily, we think of the dark parts of a slide as meaning there's more of something. In this case, it's showing there's less of something, less availability. So it's a pretty compelling slide, and delaying it seems to improve the impact of it because it gives the student time to absorb what you're saying, to see the counties of Appalachian, Ohio, and then get hit with the evidence. And by the way, this slide's from June of 2015. This is just talking about the click tips again. Click, there it is. This is a slide I use in my programming class, and it gives the students 3 problems, and they see the only differences in these problems are the data types of the variables. Now, that's not what's important for us today. What's important is they can watch this at home. They can look at this and write down what they think the answer is, or at least think in their head what the values are for each of these. When they click answer, it reveals the answer to that problem. And in case you're interested, there are the other ones. If you want to know why they differ, take CTCH 1330. This is another little interactive slide. It's a way that you can create quizzes. In this slide, the student has to click on the valid IP version 4 node addresses. So when they click on a correct one, they get a little check box or check mark. Now, if they choose something that's incorrect, say this one, it's incorrect, you click on it and it gives them feedback. Hey, none of the numbers between the dots can be greater than 255. So it's an interactive way of learning. It's not just reading that or being told that. They actually made a mistake, and that mistake became a learning opportunity. Other things you can make other things appear. Here I can click to see the body of the loop, and notice it added this border around it. Or I could click to see the conditional test, and the student then has the information isolated. Yeah. Okay, so that was just appearing and disappearing. This is an example of actual animation of movement. This was a slide for one of my statistics classes in Athens. And we're showing that this trait, we're trying to find the participant's actual theta. To illustrate the concept that we're looking for theta, when I click here, he plants his flag where he finds theta. It's very simple animation. This one's a little more complex. This is an illustration of how we count hops across the internet. As a message packet moves from router to router, and I'm just illustrating this with a frog, who is our message, hopping from station to station. We see his destination. Now there's several ways he could get there. He could come up this way and down, or this way and down. But the idea is he has this mesh, and when I click, it counts his hops. So this would be 4 hops transit of the internet. This one's very long, so I'm just going to click right through it. But I use these sometimes with the programming classes. I use the green, I turn the flowchart green as each step is processed. I know you couldn't stand to watch this one more than once. Now this one's different. All the other ones were showing animations. This is actually using embedded content. You can use this in your presentation as a way of keeping the slides less cluttered, and if you want to have a bunch of hyperlinks in it. Also, you can use this for quest type assignments, where the students got to click their way through and figure out, almost like a mystery. Click on everything that you see and try to find the content. I have 2 links here that are working, but in class I would have more than that working, and so the student would have this as their homework. They would link to this page, and everything's actually embedded. I don't have to give them the documents separately. They're embedded right in PowerPoint. So let's say they cursor over here, they see, oh, that's an audio. They can click on it. Okay, so, and then the other one that's perhaps more interesting is this document is actually a Word document that is embedded in the PowerPoint. When I upload the PowerPoint to Blackboard, I don't have to upload this document as well. The student can just click on it and read the instructions in the document. I could have links that go to other pages or websites and different places. So that one's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of fun things with that. You could also, sometimes I'll have the different documentation examples here, the statement of the problem, a place to click if you want to see the I/O chart, a place to click if you want to see the data dictionary, and another place if you want to click and see the flow chart. So it keeps it all on the page. And that's pretty much it. Now this is the link that you can use if you want to download the slides that have the instructions on how to do each of these, and have a place for you to go ahead and practice. But now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back up to the top and actually show you how some of these were created. When I work, I always have my animation pane open. Let me close that so you can see how to get that open. I come up here to animations, and then I click on animation pane. I find it easier to work with this open. You don't have to have it open. Most of the controls are up here, but I find this one a little more informative because I can see all the animations that I've placed on a slide. So here's the click tip slide, and you'll look over here, you see these are the animations I've created. The green ones are entrance exam animations, and the red ones are exit animations, and all of these little squiggly things are line motions. On this one with the different images, this is a simple, hey, when you click anywhere on the slide, make this object appear. So when you're creating the slide, you have this image on the slide. I'll actually apply it to this map so you can see how you do it. You click on here. Now, up here, they have what appears to be helpful, but is really not. This is for adding the first animation only to an object. Because I tend to get rather complex animations, if you go up here and try to put a second animation on the same object, it's going to mess you up and it's going to wipe out the first one. So what I do is I always only click add animation and I totally ignore this section. It's up to you, but I'm going to show you the add animation way to do it. Come over. First, I've selected this item. I know it's selected because I can see these little sizing handles on the four sides. Click Add Animation, and I get some choices. There's only 4 kinds of animations: entrance, emphasis, exits, and motions. Everything you saw was done with those 4 types of animations. The little pictures kind of give you an idea of what the animation looks like. I don't like fancy ones. The slides are often busy enough, and it's annoying and takes up thinking power to watch the really silly ones. But a nice appear or a fade, sometimes I need to do the fly in depending on what type of thing I'm trying to animate. But don't go too crazy with these. They get old, especially if a student is watching a slide over and over again. So you just click on appear, and then you see over here that added another item in the animation pane. Now you see these little mice and numbers on the left of the animation. That's indicating that's going to happen when I click anywhere on the page. So now I have 2 that will appear only when I click on the page. And let's go. I actually want, no, this is right. This is how I want it. No, I want this one first. I want to have the state of Ohio, Appalachian counties highlighted first. So then to preview it, I come down here, click on the little slide down here. It's all blank. I click anywhere and the first one shows up. Click anywhere else and the second one shows up. Now I could have the second one show up automatically after the first one. I do that by clicking on the particular animation that I want to change. Notice now I'm working with the animation and not with the object. So this was group 2, and you click on it, it will highlight the animations that apply to it. But now I come to the animation itself, and I'm going to say I want it to come after the previous one. So let's see what that looks like. Well, that was pretty quick. Maybe I want to pause it for a while. I come back, again, click on the animation that you want to edit, not the object. In this drop down, oh, actually, let's use this part up here. You can come up here and say, okay, I want it to come after the previous, but I want you to delay it. Let's give it a second. So this is 1.0 seconds. So now when I run this, the first one appears, and a second later, the other one appears. So you can see how that's kind of useful. Also, how long do I want it to take to appear? The duration here was only half a second. Let's make it slowly come in. So we have our delay, from after the previous one, and I have it very slow. Let's see how that works. Whoops. I preempted it. Sorry, I clicked. Couldn't contain myself. So those are some of the very simple, basic animations that you can create. Now I'm going to remove this animation because I really don't want it here when I do this for real. So I click on this and remove it. Now I'm back to how I was, except I've now slowed down this and I have it with a number 0. So this way it would automatically appear during my presentation without my requiring myself, without being required to click. You can see the start still says after previous. I'll show you what that looks like. I didn't click anywhere. So sometimes that's fun too. But I want this to be on a click, so I'm going to come up here and change it to say click. Now I've got that little number there and the little mouse. It'll be back the way it was. This is a very similar type of animation. If you look over here in the animation pane, if you remember this one, when they don't see this text in the beginning, but when the user clicks on the click tip, the text shows up. Over here in the animation pane, you can see this word trigger. That means something specific has to happen for this to work. In the previous slide, I clicked anywhere and the image appeared. Now it only appears if I click on this trigger. The way that you create that is you put your text here as if it was just normal. I'll make this one also appear on the trigger. So I take this slide, I select what it is I want to have appear. Here is the, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll make this one disappear at the same time this one appears. So I have this. I'm going to click Add Animation. If you want to click over on here, you can, but be careful. I pretend that's not there. And I'm going to have this fade away. Now you notice over here in our animation pane that this text box is appearing under the trigger. This one is not. Now I could just drag this down and put it under the trigger too, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is walk you through as if there wasn't already a trigger. So I come in here, come up here to where it says trigger. I want it to trigger when I click something. The only 3 things on my screen are 2 text boxes and this rounded triangle. This is a rectangle. This is the rounded rectangle. So on the click of the rounded rectangle, I want this to go away. Now I am going to change this to say happen with the previous, which means both of these will happen at the same time. There's only one mouse click showing. So let's see how that looks. Okay, this looks how it did originally. Originally, when I clicked on my click tip, the student had more information to read. Now we're going to see if it also triggers the disappearance of this one. And there it goes. Another nice thing about using the click tips is sometimes if some students will watch these obsessively. And if they've watched it more than once, they usually can kind of remember what the click tip said. And they kind of decide whether they're going to click that tip or not. And I think that that helps them to recall or remember the information they saw there last time in order to make a decision whether they want to click or not. And every time they recall it, it seems to help them with remembering it. Now this slide's a little different. In this slide, we had the trigger. Well, I guess it's pretty much the same. I take it back. It's the same. They clicked on answer and the text popped up. So you know how to create this. Now this has 3 different triggers, but I created them the exact same way. Let's pretend I want this problem to show up when I click "Be sure you understand." I know that's nonsense, but that's what we're going to do. So I start by selecting the item that's going to appear or disappear or move or do whatever it's going to do. I choose Add Animation. I'm going to have this one up here. Now notice it comes up without a trigger, just like our maps did. Most of the times you won't have triggers, but now I want to put a trigger on this, so I come up here to Trigger, on Click Of. Now I have to find that text box. Sometimes it's not real obvious which one it is. I'm going to pretend it's this one. And, ooh, let's see what happens. I picked the right one. So when I clicked on that, what's nice about having multiple triggers is the student, now on this one, there's not a lot of reason why you wouldn't go in order from left to right, but it allows you to click things out of order, and we're going to see an example of that next. Here's that slide with the quizzes. This is a little different in that I want to click on something and have that same thing disappear. So this time the trigger itself is the object that reacts. So what I've done with these, let me show you. When I have these, everything's already in place during the design phase. Now the ones that are wrong, incorrect answers, the feedback is underneath the object that they're going to click on. I'm going to put that here. Notice that if it's a correct answer, these check marks are triggered by the student clicking on the right an answer that is correct. So each one of these is triggered by the object to the left. The ones that are going to disappear is very similar. What happens is when they click, the first thing that happens is it changes color. You notice how dramatic that was. And the second thing is it actually disappears. So these are 2 different animations. The first one is a change in color, and the second one is an exit. So the way that I code those, let's make another one. When you click on one and do Control D, you get a duplicate. I'm just going to cover this here. Now, this automatically copies all your animations with the objects. So I'm going to come in here and remove these animations because I don't want this one to be working. So let's go and I'll show you what I mean. So these have an animation. You saw it change color and you saw it disappear. This one, oops, has no animation. So what happens? It treats it like a normal click and advances on. So how do we make this one actually a trigger? Well, there were 2 animations. One, I changed the color, the fill. So I go into Add Animation, and anything other than movement, appearing and disappearing is emphasis. So here you can choose what you want to do. I choose change the fill color. Comes up, and you can see it's going to change the color when I click. When you have any effect and you've selected it over here in your animation pane, you can come to the effect options and it'll show you what choices you have with that animation. If it's a fly-in animation, you get to pick, do you want it to come from the top or the left or the bottom? In this case, where I'm changing the fill color, I get to choose what color I want it to change to. So I'm going to pick blue. Well, yeah, that's fine. Now I also want this to be triggered by clicking on this self-same object. Ooh, and I'm going to change this number just so I can recognize it in the drop-down list of triggers. So I'm on my animation. I come up to the trigger, on click of. You know what? I never go up there. I do it under effect options. Yeah, I like this place much better. Under timing, triggers, start on click up, because you can see a whole lot more in there. So I made that one start with 500. There it is. Say okay. So now this would have, when I click on that box, it's going to change color. Anywhere else, and I advance. Now, here's the fun part. We get to add a second animation to this, the actual disappear. This is where you absolutely positively cannot use this stuff over here. Don't let them trick you. Come into the add animation. I'm going to choose an exit animation. Oh, and by the way, down here there's lots more options. Well, maybe not lots, but there's more options. But I'm going to choose fade, and I'm going to have that also go under the trigger. Now, because I have that first trigger there, I can just drag this trigger down. Ah. Okay, so I have both of these. Now, I want the disappearing to happen after the change in color. So I have to put it after. What do you think is going to happen? Didn't disappear. What's wrong? Did you notice that I left that little mouse icon there? What did I have to do? I have to come to this second one. Notice they have a 1 and a 2, which means 2 clicks to do the whole thing, and I only want 1 click. So I'm going to come back up here and say, do this after the previous. So it's going to turn color and then disappear. So now let's play it again. Now notice these other ones are still working. But now this one, if I've done it right, should, when I click it, turn blue and then disappear without my having to click a second time. So here goes. There you go. Now again, you can speed these up. I think that color change took a little bit longer. Students would get annoyed. Yeah, 2 seconds is pretty long. Let's make that 1 sec. Yeah, let's make it 0.75. They don't want to wait that long. Again, I just want to see this particular slideshow, so I click here, click there, and there you go. That's pretty quick. Okay, now I have to put this back the way it was. When I delete this object, remember that was a copy, all the animations that were associated with it go away too. That's important to remember. You don't want to delete something that you put a lot of work into it unless you're really, really sure. Okay, next one, very similar idea. In this one, 2 triggers. When I click on this object, it makes this box appear. And I think you know how to do that. Motion. Let's do some motion. In this one, the little theta guy moves back and forth. So I'm going to put an object and just move it back and forth for you. So if I go insert shape, we'll make this little happy guy move. He's looking for his theta. All right. When you click again, start any animation by clicking on the object. Going to go back to the animations ribbon, And I'm going to add an animation to this guy. Now, what I want to do with this guy now is to have him move. There are lots of fancy motion paths. If you want him to zigzag, I almost always use the custom path, which lets me draw. I'm going to use the lines for you today, though, just to show you how you can edit those. So by default, this line makes him go down. Well, I want to change that. I want him to go to the right. So if you want to change how any effect works or any animation works, you go to the effect options. Okay, I want him to go to the right. Yes. So there he goes. Now, with the animation pane open, I can see the distance that he goes. There's a little line there, the green start, the red end. Now I can take that little end and move it if I want to change where he goes. So now he should go up that way. Let's play it and see. Now remember, my first click is going to do the animation for the theta guy. And my next one is going to hopefully be my little smiley face going up here. And there you go. Now you can totally understand how this animation worked. You can see these are arcs motions. Notice there's only one little mouse and the digit 1 here, so this is all one long continuous animation. These little clocks that you see instead of a mouse next to some of them says that this animation starts after the previous one. Because this little appearance of the digit 1, you can see this 1, 2, 3, 4. Because those are only appearing after each hop, but I want them to appear at the same time as the hop happens, there's no little icon next to it. So you're either going to see a mouse if it started on the click. See up there on click. This one with the little clock started after previous, and this little one has with previous. Those are my only 3 choices. So all of this stuff is done with very little sets of tools. You're just combining these different things to make your picture very accessible. And again, he hops. There's that first hop, and you see the images appearing. Those are the effects. We're not going to go through that one. That one was just a whole bunch. You can see all the animations on there. Different places they have to click. Things that happen before or after. That one's pretty complex, but I think it works. Now this one is very different. There are some triggers, but this is primarily showing you how to embed things. This document here that we opened, now it will only work when you're in slideshow mode. So I click on that and I got a Word document to open up. It's thinking. Not the fastest thing in the world, but that's okay. And this one triggered the recording. So let's go back to this one. How did I do that? If I want to insert a Word document or maybe a PDF in case the viewer doesn't have Word, they do have to have a viewer. To embed this is a 2-part process. Now remember, when I give them this PowerPoint, this document is in the PowerPoint. I don't have to give them the document separately. We're done with the animation pane in terms of this document. So let's close that. What I want to do is insert another Word document. So I go into open the Insert ribbon and then find the object icon. it moves from version to version. Sometimes it's over here, but in the version of PowerPoint that I'm using, it's over here. It's this little icon that looks like a document in the background and then has a slide in the front. Click on that and it comes up and says, what kind of object do you want? Well, I can create a new one, but most often we choose to create from a file. So I go in here, I browse, go through my files, find a document I want to embed. Here's a Word document. Say OK. And then I don't click link or display as an icon. I just say OK. Now, you can see it comes through somewhat transparent. So to make it look like a document, I like to format it and put a white fill and a nice black background. And I think it looks cooler with a heavier background, but you can do it the way you want. Notice I also shrunk it so that it's not taking up so much space because they're going to view it when they run this. Now that was part one. Part two, that just embedded it. It's there. It's traveling with this PowerPoint. But if I want it to open when the user clicks it, that's step two. Again, I go back to the Insert ribbon. I click on my object and I choose an action. You can either have an object hyperlink or you can have it action. So I want this to action. There are two events that can trigger an action, either clicking on it or even just moving your mouse over it. I'm going to keep it with the mouse click. And you can see all these different things you can do. You can play sounds. You can run a program. You can hyperlink somewhere. But what I want to do is have an object action. Remember, my document is being referred to as an object. What do I want to do with it? I have two choices. I can edit it or I can open it. I just want the user to open it. So I click. I say OK. And now let's see if it worked. Again, you have to be in slideshow mode. You have to be in the mode where you're presenting this without the edits open. Now, when I click on this, might not be the fastest thing in the world, but there you go. And what's nice is you just give them the PowerPoint, and they can see that. This one, as you recall, was the link to the sound that we had recorded. The way we did that, went into audio. Audio, record audio, type it in what you want to say, link it, and you can have a link to that. You can also put in a hyperlink, and that's just, I know I'm running out of time. I want to get you to your hands-on part. So for the hands-on part, this is the link. I have uploaded this to Box, and everyone with an OU account has a Box. So go ahead and click there, and then I'll be here to help you. But these slides actually have the instructions in them too. I think they'll stand alone for folks who aren't here, but we'll see. Okay.